Welcome to NextYou channel, where stories aren't just told, they're felt. Have you ever been in a room so quiet that the silence started speaking to you? Not with words, but with memories. Today, I'll tell you a story about silence and how it can cost more than words ever could. Michael grew up in a small apartment tucked between tall, gray buildings of the city. His mother, Evelyn, was an old woman now, her hands weak, her back slightly bent, but her heart still strong enough to carry love that had no end. She had spent her whole life working in a small bakery, waking up before sunrise, kneading dough while the world still slept. Every loaf she made had a story. Every smile she gave was a gift. But Michael, he was different. Ambitious, sharp, and hungry for success. He believed in speed, in progress, in noise. The kind of noise that came from cities, cars rushing, phones ringing, deals closing. He loved his mother, but somewhere between deadlines and meetings, he forgot how to listen. Evelyn used to wait every evening by the window. She'd make tea for two, even though only one cup was ever touched. "He'll come today," she'd whisper to herself. But he rarely did. When he did visit, his phone was always in his hand, his eyes elsewhere. "Michael," she'd say softly, "you look tired." "I'm fine, Mom, just busy," he'd reply without looking up. And that became their routine. Words without meaning, love without expression, time without connection. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months. Evelyn grew older, lonelier. Her laughter faded into quiet hums of old songs she used to sing when Michael was a boy. The walls of that little apartment held echoes of their past, of a young mother reading bedtime stories, of a boy laughing so loud the whole neighborhood heard. But now, silence had moved in. It filled every corner, every breath, every space between them. One morning, Evelyn called Michael. Her voice was soft, trembling slightly. "Michael, can you come today? I just want to see you." "Mom, I have a meeting in an hour. Can we talk later?" "Of course," she said. "Later." But sometimes, later never comes. That night, Michael's phone buzzed again and again, but he didn't notice. Deadlines, deals, distractions, everything seemed urgent, except love. The next morning, his phone rang again. This time, it wasn't his mother. It was the neighbor. "Michael, I think you should come. It's your mom." He drove faster than he ever had before. The city lights blurred. His heartbeat echoed louder than his thoughts. When he reached the old apartment, the door was slightly open. Inside, the kettle still sat on the stove, the teacups waiting. But Evelyn wasn't there. On the table lay a letter, written in her uneven handwriting. "My dear Michael, I know you're busy. I know life is fast. I just wanted to tell you something before I go. I'm proud of you. You became everything I wished you would. But remember, my son, success means nothing if you forget to sit with those who loved you when you had nothing. If ever you find silence in your life, listen to it. You might hear my voice there. I'll always be with you, not in words, but in silence." Michael sank to the floor. For the first time in years, he cried, not the quick, frustrated kind of tears, but the heavy kind, the kind that carried regret, the kind that only silence could answer. In the days that followed, he stopped rushing. He took time to visit the bakery where his mother once worked. The owner, a kind old man, handed him a loaf of bread. "Your mother made these with love," he said. Michael held it in his hands, feeling the warmth, the memory, the love she left behind. He began talking to people again, not with his phone, but with his eyes. He helped a young boy sell newspapers, taught a struggling baker how to knead dough, and every evening, he'd sit by the same window his mother once sat at, 2 cups of tea beside him, one for her, one for him. Sometimes he'd whisper softly, "I'm here now, Mom." And in that silence, he could almost hear her say, "I know." Years passed. Michael grew older, wiser, quieter. His success no longer lived in numbers but in moments, helping others, sharing stories, listening. He learned that silence wasn't the absence of sound. It was the presence of truth. One evening, a young man knocked on his door, a reporter who had heard about Michael's story. "Sir," he said, "people say you lost everything once, but now you seem at peace." "How?" Michael smiled faintly. "Because I finally understood the price of silence. It cost me my mother's voice, and I promised myself I'd never let silence take love away again." He looked outside at the city lights, bright, fast, loud, yet within him there was calm, the kind that comes when you've made peace with your past. As he stood there, a soft wind brushed against his face. Somewhere he thought he heard her humming again, the same lullaby she once sang when he was a child. And for the first time in a long time, he smiled through his tears. The story ends where it began, with silence. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was full of love, memories, and peace. Because sometimes silence isn't a punishment. It's a lesson.